Thank you, Carrie, and thank you, IOTA. I'm leaning in close because the Lord saw fit this morning to remove my voice. That may have been a sign that I'm talking too much, so I may be under the 8 minutes. We'll see how I go. This morning we had really quite a good session on looking at the challenges of theological education, and I had this orangey handout which explains exactly what we're doing at St. Vladimir's in terms of reorienting or reimagining what it means to be a residential seminary. So I'm not going to repeat what I did this morning, but if you'd like to have a copy of one of these, please take it as you're leaving. Some of the things that I just want to highlight in terms of like bullet points to help sort of set the arena for how we network as institutions would be, first, we're experiencing a real recommitment to the Oriental Eastern Orthodox dialogue. And we're living that out in terms of our students. Almost 1/4 of our students now are in the Oriental Orthodox tradition. We've established a Malakaran chapel, a Coptic chapel. And as I pointed out this morning, at least on Fridays, in the morning we do Lectio Divina and pray the Jesus Prayer corporately, so there's at least one time when all of us can actually come and pray together. But that's something that we'll be highlighting, and over the next few years we'll be emphasizing more and more, and we know that there are other Orthodox institutions with this kind of commitment in Sweden, in the Netherlands, and in Australia. We've responded as a seminary, as I think we should, to the crisis of the closure of most of the seminaries in Africa. I know that Makarios has reopened, but it's reopened with a different kind of look than it had a few years ago. Financial difficulties after the collapse of the Greek economy, of course, have really impacted Africa. So without a nickel in the bank, we've developed this internal system for screening applicants from Africa, from the Patriarchate of Alexandria. So we know that they can cope at that graduate level, which St. Vladimir's is known for. But also we created the St. Cyprian's Fund so that these African students don't bear any burden at all in terms of the financing of their education. And I've been asked at least 50 times since I've been here, are they going home to Africa? And the answer is yes. All of them are quite committed, and most of them have a real vision for a kind of entrepreneurial, self-supporting way of doing missions, and particularly reopening of theological schools, colleges, institutes in their particular regions in Africa. One of the things that has evolved out of the Vision 2020, the reimagining of residential life in our community, is we're listening to the students, and the students were telling us their lives need to be readjusted in community life, and that they have some interests for which they never get to really address them. So what we call basically student interest groups are now functioning during the midday meeting period. When I arrived at St. Vladimir's 12 years ago, we had what I call Pavlov's lunch dog, Pavlov's dog lunch. You would ring a bell, you'd say a prayer, you'd snarf down your food in 20 minutes, you'd ring a bell, say a prayer, and you're out of there. It's now a 2-hour block. We no longer have night classes as an accommodation to family stress and other things. But that allows us then to have quite a chunk of time in the middle of the day for doing various things that impact the community. So it's allowed us to do a lot of supplemental things. And I just want to list a few of the areas that have just organically evolved from the student interests. A particular group has evolved out of race issues, one for missions and evangelization, an environmental interest group, a pro-life ethical group, a parenting group. All of these things have just sort of evolved, all student-driven and all motivated, and they provide us with an opportunity for supplemental work. There's one that's evolved on the Western Rite of Orthodoxy as well. We've begun to do some initial coordination with 2 movements within North America for educating smaller children and young adults, with the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, which is based on the Montessori method. I know my Alaskan brother here knows a lot about that. We've begun moving in that direction, and also with faithtree.com, which is based out of an Antiochian parish in California, which again is quite successful. We think this is kind of the proper way in which to be doing this, being the kind of theological center, almost like a lab school. And attached to the lab school concept is what we're doing in terms of trying to coordinate our curriculum, our programs, with assisting the developing Orthodox classical schools that we're seeing all across America. There's, of course, always SBS Press, which continues to be strong in its 50th year. I pointed out this morning of the 280 ATS accredited seminaries, ours is the only one that makes a profit with its press without subsidy. That says something. It says something about quality. It says something about particular niche, I think. But that, again, is one of our resources that we'd like to actually share and work with other institutions with. The library, which has been described by the late James Billington as one of the finest in the New World. We're reorienting and is going to have more of an emphasis for a research library for people can be residential in terms of doing especially postdoc and doctoral work. We've borrowed this model, I think, for the community life in terms of a Benedictine model from the rule of St. Benedict. And Benedict said that the highest form of ministry, of Christian ministry, is that of hospitality. So we're also looking at better ways in which we can accommodate alumni, others who need just a brief period of time for some retreat, research, and some continuing ed. One of the other focuses, again, which is networking, there'll be new things evolve from IOTA, I'm sure, is doing our fieldwork programs on the CPE, the Clinical Pastoral Education Model, with OCMC, IOCC, Focus North America, and those other groups. Something that came up this morning, which again we're already pretty excited about, is working with IOTA to create a data bank for faculty and theological institutions so we can better network together.